time is 7:02 p.m. It is Tuesday, July 21st, and I'm going to call this regularly scheduled City Council meeting to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Next up, roll call. Would the city secretary please call a roll?
Mitchell. Mitchell.
Here.
Koch.
Here.
Ellison.
Present.
Shields.
Here.
Rizo.
Here.
Villalobos. Tobias.
Here.
All right, 7 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, approval of the minutes.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the City Council special meeting minutes from July 7th and the City Council meeting minutes from July 7th.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Shield, seconded by Councilmember Villalobos that we approve the minutes for July 7th. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries. Next up, citizen comments period. I believe we have one person registered to speak. Is that still the case? Samantha?
That person has not logged into the meeting.
All right, so no one registered to speak. Is that correct? We have no one waiting.
But they haven't. They registered and they didn't log in.
Okay. All right. Well, if there are no objections, I'm going to go ahead and close the citizen comments period. No objections. We're going to move on. Next up, city manager's report. Mr. Earp.
Mayor, Council, for the record, James Earp, Assistant City Manager, and I'm filling in for the City Manager, Scott Sellers, tonight. I have one item that is of real importance to cover tonight in the City Manager's report, and that is the Kyle Cares Grant update. Not too long ago, the Council directed staff to pull together a program that we would roll out that would address some of our folks in the community that are experiencing financial hardships due to COVID, and specifically as it relates to the utility bills. So Matt, if you would please pull up the slides. I'll talk through the slides real quick for the benefit of the public. So you see that the first thing is the launch date is tomorrow. So this is a preview of the information, but the information is currently live. Matt, if you want to go ahead and roll. So this, again, focuses on the utility billing services that are managed by the City of Kyle. That includes City of Kyle water, wastewater, solid waste, and storm drainage that we collect on the monthly utility bill. The specific bills that are eligible for this grant application are the bills for the months of March, April, and May, which have the associated cutoff dates listed on the slide. We are looking at making available for those that apply and are eligible a credit for their monthly service charge for these utility services, also late payment penalty fees, and any service disconnection fee that may have been assessed. This grant program does not cover account deposits or other service applications or the fees associated with initiating a new account. It also is not available for the use for utilities that are not billed through the city of Kyle, including things like electricity, internet, your phone bill, rent, mortgage, but more particularly water services that are provided by outside providers in our city, such as Monarch, County Line, etc. So the requirements for eligibility for the grant were established as being a inside city residential customer with an active utility account. And you have to be the primary individual under whose name the utility account is registered. And then you must also be experiencing a financial hardship due to the loss of job or reduction in income that's related to COVID. And then you also must be at or below the federal income thresholds for low income as shown on the table. These dollar amounts are based on the number of persons that live in the homestead. And this table is a part of the application process that Samantha and her team put together and rolled out a little bit earlier today. Go ahead, Matt. So this is the outreach that is being done in both English and Spanish. Postcards are going to be mailed out to every utility customer. We are installing and putting up posters around town. It's been posted on the city's major social media, electronic news outlets, including our website. There's a press release that's been prepared. There's a short video, and of course, city council meetings and the announcements that are coming through city council. The applications and the documentation are going to be available to be submitted electronically through our website at cityofkyle.com/Kyle Cares. But in the event that you need to do paper applications, you can mail those to City Hall or drop them into the night box with the associated application documentation. And then utility billing staff will be reviewing these for being complete and being eligible, and then they will make a decision on either approval or denial, which will be responded back to the applicants. Our goal is to take no longer than a week. It's possible that there may be a lot that are received in the first week, and it may take a little bit when we first get this rolled out, but the intent is to try to be extremely timely in these responses because of the ongoing financial impacts that this grant would have on that household. We have communication set up for folks that have questions. They can contact the utilities billing department at either their email, which is utilities@cityofkyle.com, or via phone 512-262-3960. That is essentially the summary of the program. And if anyone is has any impairments or any issues and needs help, you can always just call the City Hall hotline 512-262-1010 and ask for assistance, and staff will be happy to assist however we can.
Thanks, James. Anybody have anything to add to this program? Any comments? It's obviously a great program, and we're excited to see this get rolled out. I can tell very clearly that staff didn't want to rush out the gate until we had all of the machinery behind the scenes set up so that folks wouldn't be frustrated trying to get an application in. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this program smoothly. Councilor Ellison.
Yes, I concur with your comments as well. And hopefully we have a number of people that can benefit from this. I had a quick question about the communication and how we're utilizing, or what we're using to translate our communications in Spanish.
I'll let Samantha answer, but I believe that we're using internal resources to be able to do those translations. Samantha?
Dawn Brewster, Director of Communications and he is right. We do have a team of city staff that has been certified as verbal Spanish translators, and we're utilized for the translation of all the outreach that is planned for this program.
Fantastic. And I certainly appreciate staff's conscious and consistent effort in continuing to make sure we are disseminating our information in both languages. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Great work. And knowing what it takes to kind of put one of these together, you guys did an outstanding job. All I can say is it's a lot of work to get to this point. Great job.
Thank you, Council.
Councilmember Rizo, I just want to say thank you for your hard work on this. And I can tell you this definitely in a much needed time, working the food lines at our food distribution. I can see the need in our community, and this is just another way that we as a city can help our residents. So thank you. Great job, team. Thank you.
All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Next up, agenda item number 5, appointments. Confirm the city manager's reappointment to the Civil Service Commission to fill a 3-year term to expire July 31st, 2023. Mr. Stuart Kirkwood. Go ahead, James.
Mayor, Council, essentially the Civil Service Commission is a body that adjudicates the civil service process that we have for our police department, which operates under the state law that the voters put in place. It requires a civil service commission that is appointed by the city manager. Stuart Kirkwood has been serving on this commission. It's only a 3-person commission, so it's to a certain degree, it's very important that we maintain at least someone with institutional knowledge as the issues come up regularly before the Civil Service Commission about amendments or changes to the Civil Service Code and how it's implemented through meet and confer. So the city manager has proposed Stuart Kirkwood be reappointed to a full 3-year term.
Thank you, James. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Rizo. Is there any further discussion?
James, I just have a quick question. How many terms has Stuart Kirkwood already served?
I don't know how many terms he has served. Sandra is on here. She might know off the top of her head. Sandra Duran, HR Director.
Hi. Yes, he served 1 term, so this would be his second 3-year term.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, presentation, agenda item number 6, Six Creeks Public Improvement District Annual Service Plan Update. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up agenda item number 7 at the same time, if there's no objection, which is the Southwest Kyle PID number 1 Annual Service Plan Update. These are both being presented by John Snyder of P3 Works. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, John Snyder with P3 Works. We're the city's PID administrator. Both of these documents for both Six Creeks and Southwest Kyle PID number 1, these are the service plan updates that are required by state law. So annually we have to come in, amend the SAP, and really the purpose is we're updating the assessment roll and also determining the annual installments that are due for the upcoming tax bill. Starting on Six Creeks, that project is moving forward very rapidly, and they've been selling both a lot of lots to home builders, and then those home builders are actively building homes. So currently there's 213 lots out there. 152 are now owned by home builders. The builders have already closed 28 homes to end users, and there's another 58 homes under construction. And in Exhibit C to the SAP, starting on page 17, you can see the home buyer disclosures that have been provided, and that they are having people execute for the disclosure program. So it provides the detail of what their total assessment is, as well as an estimate of what their annual installments look like. So everybody's fully aware going in. As shown on page 3, the annual installment due for the total district right now is $949,000. So that'll be, again, broken out between the 213 lots, as well as there's a lot of land that's not currently platted. So about half of the assessment is still just going to go to the developer in unplatted in the unplatted parcel. We've had one prepayment so far. So one property owner decided they didn't want to be in the PID, and so they paid the assessment off in full, and we've reflected that on the assessment roll. They've as of March 31st, they're about 60% complete on the improvements. So they spent about $5.9 million to date on the infrastructure in the district. And then the last piece I wanted to mention is we are expecting the developer to come back. They've been keeping me updated on progress, and they think they're going to be ready to move into improvement area 2 later this year or the first part of next year. So I would expect council will be seeing the developer and another revised SAP incorporating the improvement area 2 assessments probably in the next 6 months or so. With that's all I have on Six Creeks. Unless there's any questions, I can move on to Southwest Kyle.
Any questions for John on the first part? We'll save our questions, John. Go ahead. Okay.
So Southwest Kyle's quite a bit simpler. Right now, it's 100% owned by the developer. They haven't recorded any plat, so there's no. It's still one assessment that's going out to the developer rather than any homeowner. So there's no home builders, there's no homeowners. It's all the developer that owns the property. The total installment that'll be due January 31st of next year is $282,000. They still have a lot of money left in the project fund, so they are developing and they're submitting their invoices monthly for us to review and approve. So far they've spent about $850,000, but they still have about just under $1.9 million left in the project fund. So they've still got a ways to go in terms of getting their infrastructure complete. And again, we don't have any, since the plat's not recorded, we don't have home buyer disclosures because we actually need to see exactly what was platted before we can prepare those documents. But once they do have the plat, then we'll go in and the next SAP update will incorporate all of that. And that's all I have. I'm ready for questions.
Thanks, John. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. All right, if there are no objections, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Next agenda item, presentation on the Charter Review Commission recommendation of changes to the city's charter for the November 3rd, 2020 election. Diane Hervol, I believe we've got her in the lobby. Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate this opportunity. As you know, the council called for the Charter Review Commission in April or May of this year. The commission has been meeting every week since June 1st, and we just finished up last night. We went through the charter section by section. We were given a list of items from staff to consider. The commissioners also brought forward a few suggestions. We also received a few recommendations from public comment. The commission's approved changes are in your backup and are recommended for your consideration. On behalf of my fellow commissioners, we appreciate the opportunity to serve and consider it an honor. And with that, I'll take any questions you guys might have.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Diane? I definitely enjoyed going through the backup material.
So, Councilmember Rizo, Diane, they're in section 5.06, I believe the City Hall is something that I noticed being removed. What was the reasoning behind that? 5.06.
I guess I'm not understanding where City Hall was removed. It says
No, it says the was let me see if I can get back to the, I can't bring it up. It was moved.
It's on the screen, Councilman Rizo.
Yeah, there it is. It goes it says, it keeps moving. Okay. Where it comes out to the election precincts, the city hall or the city hall annex shall be D was taken out right there, and be a polling place. So what was the reasoning behind taking out the to change it to A? Because to me, it's the interpretation says it could possibly be a polling place or not. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I feel that City Hall should always be a polling place because people have come to recognize it as a place to go vote. And I just feel like the language is changing it a bit where it might not be a polling place.
I think I think the option is there to include the city hall, but not designate it to necessarily be the one and only place in the event you might have a special election. Like for instance, if you would have a special election in regards to one of the member districts of like District 6, you might necessarily hold that election in perhaps a chopper or something. It wasn't not to include City Hall, but to not make City Hall the only place.
Oh, okay. I get that. I was just worried because, you know, we want to encourage voter turnout. So I was just making sure we weren't doing something that might discourage voter turnout. But if it's to incorporate something that might be in the district at a special election, I can understand it. So thank you for the explanation, Diane, Mr. Wall.
Okay. Sure. Understood. Any others?
Councilmember Tobias, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you, Ms. Hervol and your commission for all your hard work. I really appreciate it very much. I'm going by again to the section 5.03 in the special elections. On the last sentence, it's the state provided that every special election shall be held on a uniform election date unless otherwise provided by law. I see that the Saturday was taken out. Was there a reason why specifically the Saturday was taken out?
The majority of commissioners felt that it's not necessarily you're going to have Saturdays. Well, it's not. It's to make sure that we're following a uniform election date, whether that's designated it's designated by state law. But I think that your opportunities, the majority of commission felt you would have many opportunities to vote during early voting, and several of those would be, I think there's 2 weeks of early voting, and perhaps you would have early voting on 2 Saturdays.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back again to where Councilman Rizo was having it on the 506 polling place. So we would state in there to where the city hall would be a place for election, but if there is a district race, let's say in District 1 or District 6, that there could be a possible other polling spot available as well.
Yes, that's
two other places to where you can be able to have that that opportunity for people either can go downtown or vote in their district area.
Yes, or you could have the option if it's just a District 6 race, you would have you would have the option just to have it at Chapa.
Okay.
Or, you know.
Sure. There. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Diane, this is Alex Villalobos. Thanks for all the work that the commissioners did. Very sensitive to the things that we needed. It gives us a little bit of latitude, but I think it still drives home everything that we want. It's inclusive. It's also providing opportunities for more engaged voting. I think that was very well put on a couple of those different things from my mind. So good job. A good job to the entire commission, and thank you for presenting.
Okay, thank you.
I concur. I also follow along the Charter Review Commission's. Ms. Hervol, thank you and the rest of the commission for the time and effort in combing through this very lengthy document. It is an important task, and so we sincerely thank you all for taking it on and taking it on so sincerely and consistently with your meetings. That showed how much it was important to you all as well. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to do that. Did you, was there any perhaps feedback that you had as far as something that was a little bit more challenging for you all to kind of weigh through?
You know, I would say that, you know, we were given a task, and of course we wished we had more time. And I think that there were several sections, well, there were a couple sections. I think that maybe if we had more time to dive into some of the other charters and some of the other cities, I mean, we did dive into them. It would, I think if we would have had more, just a tad bit more time, but you know, we went through it, and I think there was special elections was, you know, we kept coming back to it. That was a little bit challenging for us. The compensation, the recommended change to council compensation, you know, section 3.09. We discussed that in great length over and over. And we finally came to an agreement to hopefully give the citizens a little more buy-in. So those were a couple of the sections that, you know, we went over and again. You know, I think that at the, you know, we realized the amount of time we had, because it was important to us that the changes be submitted to you guys in a timely fashion to make sure that you guys had enough time to review and finalize, and then ensure if any changes were going to be submitted to be placed on the ballot, that there was enough time.
I completely understand that, and thank you for your candor in your response there. I certainly think you all worked very diligently, though, with the time that you all were given, and I think you all definitely took that sincerely. One thing that I heard consistently throughout the meetings was a desire for people to participate in voting, and it's a challenge, and I'm not sure one wave of the wand in a certain area can really compel that to spike like we want it to, but we're looking at all different ways to do that. And I certainly appreciated y'all's discussion and very thorough discussion in trying to figure that out. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think another thing you'll see here, that we were consistent about ensuring that, you know, things were always communicated through all official forms of communication that the city approves. And so, and to be consistent, it is, you guys know as well as I do, the voter turnout in Kyle is poor, and to increase that voter turnout is always a hurdle to cross. And so hopefully in the future, you know, reminders, or however we need to do it to get them to the polls is what we're looking for, as I think you guys are as well.
Absolutely.
So.
Thank you.
Well, people of Kyle, we have an election every November, and there's at least 2 council members on every election, and every time is important. So I certainly, I hope everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's the perfect way for your voice to be heard. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts, feedback?
Councilmember Rizo, Diane, I just want to say thank you for your role you played in the Charter Review Commission. I think you were surprised when they elected you to chair it, and but I think they did a great job of picking the right person to be the chair of that committee. And I just want to thank you all for y'all's hard work. It was a short amount of time, but you definitely did your due diligence and to the best to the time constraints, but thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. Yes, I was a tad bit shocked. I was not expecting that at this point, but I was happy to serve, and like I said, I really consider it an honor to serve in that capacity, and I appreciate everything the commissioners did. Jennifer did a great job for us. Can't thank her enough. The city manager and, of course, the city attorney. We appreciated all their input, including the city finance director. So they were all very helpful and willing to participate in any of the questions that we put forth, and we appreciated it.
Well, thank you, Diane. I can confirm what was said by Councilor Rizo and others, that I know the time frame was short, but I watched and listened in on probably 75% of your meetings, and the group certainly took it very seriously and did the best that they could under those constraints. And I felt like the discussions that were had around some of those key issues, even if the outcome was something I may or may not personally agree with, was good. It was good, healthy discussion, with a focus on the details, just in just the right way. So yeah, for myself as well, I just want to say thank you. I think that logistically, what we're looking at right now is we'll need to bring these forward and have a more robust discussion. I feel like a kind of a Tuesday evening type discussion over this may not be the best time for us to really delve into the items, and wanted to suggest setting up a workshop. We have an August 1st budget workshop. And so as a result, I wanted to propose August 8th, which is a Saturday morning, for us to go through some of these items and have that discussion, and wanted to get a sense of whether or not council could make that, and whether or not statutorily we would still be within our window. Just wanted to get confirmation from Paige that we would be within our window to take up the items at a workshop on the 8th, and then possibly take action the second meeting in August if we wanted to call or put any of these propositions on the ballot.
Mayor, I'm looking at the election schedule, and your city secretary may be able to get to it faster than me. So checking the election schedule. The deadline for calling the election this year would be what dictates that answer to that question.
Hey, Jennifer says the deadline for calling the election is the 17th.
Okay.
So if we had it on the 8th, we could potentially take action on the 15th. It's charter time, it's budget time. I know our Saturdays are important. I don't think the meeting on the 15th would necessarily be long, but we have quite a few different things happening. So blocking out the morning of the 8th and the morning of the 15th probably makes sense now. And if we end up not needing it, then we can cancel the meeting. But from what,
sorry, go ahead.
well, from what Jennifer is telling me, it looks like we could do it that way. And if we had to do a first and second reading, we could probably do both of those on the 15th.
That was going to be my next comment, and you can accommodate that if you need to do that on the 15th.
What does staff and council think about that? The only relevant staff would obviously just be legal, Jennifer, James, you know.
The only thing is, with on the second meeting, I would like it to be early in the morning. You know, there's some things that are happening on Saturday.
You talking about the 15th?
Yes. If we can do that discussion early in the morning, and then I'm good with it all the way through. So yes.
Well, we could also call, it doesn't have to be Saturday morning. The workshop for the 8th would be good because it's extended, but what's contemplated for the 15th is a very short meeting, most likely. Okay. Because we will have done most of the work at the workshop. It's basically just following statutory requirements to get the votes registered. So if we didn't want to do it on the 15th, we could potentially do it
no, I'm good
like on the 11th. The 11th would be that Tuesday. It's a P&Z Tuesday, but we're virtual now, so we can hold concurrent meetings, and P&Z staff is not the same as charter review and charter amendment staff.
So Mayor's Councilmember Rizo, I will not be available the 15th or the 22nd. I'm not in the area. So
would you be available the 11th?
I will be available the 11th.
Sounds good.
So far what I've heard is we could do something like an 8 a.m. workshop on the 8th, and the agenda for that workshop would be to go through and determine what propositions we wish to put before the voters as it relates to charter, and talk that through. And then the 11th would be basically two different meetings called back to back, one for first reading and one for second reading, so that we can fulfill the statutory requirements. And it's cramped than I think we would normally like to do it, but considering COVID-19 and where we're at, I think that we're allowed to do it this way. And so I'm perfectly comfortable setting it up this way.
The 8th? What time? 4 a.m. or 6 a.m.? 4 a.m. or 6 a.m.?
I need to get some consensus around that, Councilmember Tobias. Let me hear from others first before we make that call.
Well, already at 6 a.m. we need you.
0600, Michael. 0600.
0600, sir. Rise and shine.
So I wouldn't be able to make a meeting on the morning of the 8th. But if it's the discussion and then I guess a turnaround to Tuesday night, the 11th, to have the first and second reading on it, I can certainly make my feelings known and thoughts known on that night.
Under your charter, one of the meetings has to be a regular meeting unless it's adopted by 7 votes.
So do you have any availability on the 8th, Councilmember Ellison? Is it the morning or is it all day?
Probably wouldn't be available to 5 that day. So what were you saying, Paige, that one of the meetings that we're proposing on the 11th?
One of the meetings where you do one of the readings has to be a regular meeting.
Right, but that's not the 8th. That's the 11th. So we need to all be able to commit to the 11th.
I can do the 11th.
Mayor, does the 11th count as a regular meeting? Because that's not a normal council.
No. So what Paige says was one of the meetings has to be a regular meeting unless the ordinance is passed with all 7 members present. Is that passed unanimously, Paige?
7 affirmative votes So unanimous of all members present.
That
When is
before
the-
8th, correct? Okay.
And that vote would take place on the 11th, correct, Paige?
Yes, unless you, I mean, the 4th would be the first regular meeting. You could try to hit one reading, but I don't know if that accommodates your schedule for a workshop prior to that.
It may be more appropriate then for us, because I don't think that it's a good setup for us to try to rush it such that the only way we can get a proposition on the ballot is through a unanimous vote. That would put a lot of pressure on someone to vote in the affirmative if their vote would have been another way in order to avoid a situation. So what do y'all think about the 1st? We have a meeting on the 1st scheduled already for the budget, which obviously is going to take a substantial amount of time. Is this group comfortable, since we're already going to have staff there, trying to allocate a certain amount of that meeting, a certain amount of the time in that day for the charter as well?
I'm okay with the 1st. I'll commit it the whole day.
Yes, I'm good with that.
I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that just gives everybody the ability to clear their heads, and we'll have a regular meeting coming up on the Tuesday after the 1st, regularly scheduled, and then we can continue the deliberations there, and then have a second hearing on the 11th if needed, we can figure it out from there. We have enough room if we have the meeting on the 1st.
I would suggest the first two, like you said, Mayor, that we have everybody there, including staff, everybody present. So if we work out the workshop, the budget in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I guess we finish further.
Okay, big day, work day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a good night's rest.
Okay.
That certainly works with my schedule, and I appreciate the accommodation. Certainly, I think everybody should go into it knowing that's going to be a long day and be ready for the long haul, which I'm all for.
Okay.
That's good.
Works for me. All right. No objections. I'm going to move on. Next up, agenda item number 9, consent agenda presentation. Mr. Barber, go ahead.
I'm looking to see if Leon has made it back into the meeting. He just texted a few minutes ago that he was having his computer froze up and he was having to re-log in. I'm not seeing him in the current participant list, just scrolling through it.
All right, James, you want to guide us through these slides?
Sure, I'm pretty sure I can read slides with the best of them. Yes, sir.
That's what he does. maybe he'll be in so that we can ask him the questions when he gets here.
All right, sounds good. Matt, go ahead and advance, please. Oh, look, there's Leon connecting right there. How is that for handy?
Perfect. Sorry, folks. My computer locks up every once in a while. I just did it. I can tell because nobody's moving. So when I see nobody's moving, I said, "Oh, I better get back on and disconnect everything and get back on." So I'm back on the air. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barber, City Engineer. Got some good news tonight, so we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation. Let's talk about Lyman Road. The picture that you have there is the second layer of asphalt going down. We hope to get it striped temporarily with temporary striping Friday and open it up for traffic next week as soon as we can. So we still have some other things to work on in the area. We do have some foundations for some lighting that we still have to put in. So we still have a little bit of work on this behind the curb and gutter, but the road in essence is pretty well complete. Even though the project shows 78%, when this pay request comes in, that's quite a bit of work that's been done there. So That'll really jump that number up into the 90%, 90+% range. So that's looking good. Councilmember Tobias, you'd asked about the crosswalks in that area. We do have that crosswalk at Button Creek. I did check with the project manager. If it's not in the plans, we're going to make sure there's a crosswalk at Brutus. I think there's already signs there for a crossing. So we'll make sure that that's included in the contract and get that down on the Brutus intersection. On the next slide, Burleson. If you've been by Burleson, you notice that lately there's been a bunch of milling that was done in those areas. We took out the bad spots in the pavement. We plan to start paving all this Monday. And then when I say complete the paving, we are going to complete it. It's going to be not only the patching, but the last layer of paving is going to go down. Unfortunately, we'll only be able to go up to James Atkins. So that last section between James Atkins and the roundabout will not be done. But the rest of the paving will be down on Burleson back from James Atkins back to Lockhart Street. There was a little bit of an area that we took out in front of the pawn shop to get over the embers, and that wasn't draining properly to the inlet that was there. So we asked the contractor to make sure to remove it and make sure it worked the way it's supposed to. So that's what's happening on the paving with the area. As we know, we did get the bore completed on the railroad track. We've had some difficulties with working with Union Pacific. Got an email from the project manager this afternoon. They were able to get in touch with Union Pacific, the contractor, and the Union Pacific and project manager talked to get the paperwork straightened out so we can go ahead and get started working in that particular area. So I'm thinking maybe 3 to 4 weeks by the time we wrap that section up. As far as the paving, I do want to mention that the section north of the roundabout is also scheduled to be paved too. So a lot of work's going to be happening next week with paving. Again, we're still we should wrap everything up by August, end of August on this project. The Southside Wastewater Project, we're 55% complete. We still have the same crews working in the area. The third crew is working at the bore pit there by 35. So they're about a third of the way through that bore. There's 4 bores, and this is the first of the 4 bores we're working on. On the treatment plant expansion, we're about a little over 3.5% complete. Since the last time I presented, they had moved almost 12,000 cubic yards of material. They've excavated that for the aeration basins. This is one of the cranes that we talked about. This pretty significant crane that's sitting there. It's going to help them load their steel and help them with the construction of the foundations as they build the basins and the headworks and the clarifiers. The contract manager, contract inspection that we approved previous council meeting, they're starting to be on site. They will be there daily starting the week of July 27th. And that's where we are with the project on the expansion. So it's moving well. We probably moved around 25,000 plus yards of material so far, at least that much. So it's moving very quickly. And the next thing they'll be doing is trying to set their foundations. Next slide. I think that was it. One other thing I wanted to mention to Councilmember Villalobos is that we asked the contractor one more time about the sidewalk that was damaged over there at the Western Cove. He finally said he would go ahead and fix that. So that's going to be taken care of. We also mentioned he still needs to get that grass to grow. So he will be taking care of that also. So we did follow up on that. And he did agree to take care of those items at least before we make final payment. Yes.
I have a question. I guess there's a water line that's still, I guess you guys still need to set it in that hooks up to the irrigation system for Silverado. Do we know when that portion will be back in so they can hook up and have that ready?
Is that at the intersection of Spring Branch?
I believe it's, yes, I believe it is.
Yeah, we still have a little bit of work to do there. I believe we're going to have a drilling contractor that's going to be coming in. There's still a few more foundations for the illumination that need to be done, and also setting those foundations for the traffic signals. So they'll be prepared there for the future. So those are part of the contract. I will find out about this water meter. I guess it needs to be connected. I'll find out about that
I guess more along the lines. I guess that's the same. That would be the same issue if it's Burleson and Star of Texas. It's right there at around that same area.
Okay.
Okay.
I will follow up on that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Leon, Councilmember Rizo. My first question is the crosswalks at Lehman. Are those crosswalks going to be lighted, and will there be any kind of indicators for people when they're crossing traffic across the street there? I'm just thinking about future because of kids, the school, everything there.
I understand there's some signs there, but they're not lighted or anything. But the crosswalks will be striped. We'll stripe the crosswalks for sure.
Is there any lights there for evening times? Because it gets dark in the winter months, and I'm thinking about kids leaving because eventually we'll have games there again. Everything else, thinking about families and kids going back to the subdivisions and walking across. I'm just making sure we've got lighted intersections there for the crosswalks.
We did provide safety lighting. I will double check and make sure that safety lighting is at those intersections.
Sounds good. Thank you, Leon. My second question is the bore under the railroad track at Burleson. How deep was that bore? It looks kind of shallow in the picture. That's why I'm asking.
Let's say between 10 and 15 feet.
Oh, okay. It looks a little shallower than that. That's what I was asking because of the gift from the train coming by, how deep it goes down. I was just making sure that it was that deep. The picture is kind of deceiving, so I'll tell you that. But yeah, how long before they open up Burleson to traffic from the roundabout? Do you have an estimated time? I know August is our finish out date, but to get traffic on there, do you have an estimated time for that?
Yes, I spoke to the project manager about that. We're thinking 3 to 4 weeks. They've got to get the water line in, get it backfilled, tested. Then we can start with the street work and get that opened up. So we're estimating around 3 to 4 weeks to get that all wrapped up so we can get it opened up.
All right. Thank you, Leon. And I can tell you that a lot of residents are really looking forward to Burleson being opened up, especially some of the residents that live on the streets that traffic has been diverted to. So thank you for staying on this, and I appreciate your diligence on this, Leon. Thank you.
Council member, I have relatives that live there, so they keep reminding me about that also. So I understand.
Thank you.
Leon, this is Councilman Tobias. Again, thank you for the update. I was actually out there yesterday checking out Lehman Road, and they are at their final stages, it looks like. I can finally see them by the high school, which is very encouraging. And so I guess the majority of all the sidewalks are going to be on the west side, correct? Where the subdivisions are at? Nothing on the east where they have the farmland?
That's correct. We're expecting developers to fill in the gaps on the east side. Okay.
And again, I guess Councilor Rizo reiterate, again, there's going to be the crosswalks and the signage. That's always been my big concern, especially when my oldest one was going out there. Right when school gets out, there's a large group of kids that just kind of walk out in the middle of the street trying to gauge the traffic and the cars, which could be very dangerous. So now seeing it finally come into light, it's really going to be helpful when those crosswalks get there, and especially with the lights. It's going to be able to help alleviate all that foot traffic crossing the street, Lehman, very carefully. And especially like what he was mentioning about the games, especially when you have the softball, the football, all those games. A lot of those kids come from those neighborhoods, from Steeplechase all the way to Prairie Creek down to the trails. And so it's going to be nice to be able to have that walkway for them to go all the way down back to their housing and of course back to school in the morning as well. So I appreciate your hard work on that and making sure that gets done by August. So hopefully when schools do open up in September, they will be able to have something already in place, all the kinks worked out as far as the lighting goes and as far as the traffic. We can be able to make sure it's wide enough for a large group of kids to walk across. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember.
And Leon, I have a question in regards to this crosswalks as well. Are they just going to be a striped crosswalk, or are they going to be controlled?
They're just striped at this point in time.
Okay, so we won't have, anybody able to they're not going to be controlled, in other words, meaning that they have to push a button to be told when they can cross.
I believe they're not going to have any controls, but I will follow up and see if they do. But I don't think they were in the plans, but I will double check.
Okay. All right. And yes, I know that we had some heavy equipment have to be driven through Waterleaf just because it couldn't make it down Heidenreich, but we don't foresee any more of that, correct? For the wastewater treatment plant?
Maybe when they leave in 2 years, we'll see them leaving with the equipment, but that's probably, yeah. We've also been working with public works staff to make sure that the contractor's not using that entryway. So some of the equipment that may come in there may be public works, but it's not major equipment or big equipment.
Right. Okay. Well, we just had I think a couple of pieces have to come through just because they weren't able to utilize Heidenreich. So, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions for Leon or for the consent agenda in particular?
Yes, I got one more question that just came to me. I think the tree, I guess there's a large tree at one of the entryways to Silverado. I know that there were some discussions with the city either taking that down as a result of the construction. I know it's deceased now. It was not at the start of the construction. So is that something you guys have had some discussions about, Leon?
There have been some discussions. I don't remember what the final result was, but there was some discussion. Let me follow up on that one also.
Thank you.
I think the tree was in the right of way, but it wasn't intended to be taken out by the contractor.
Understood.
If I remember correctly.
Okay.
All right. If there are,
that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, we're going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to approve the consent agenda items number 10 and 11, please.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Rizo that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Items number 10 and 11. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 12, consider impossible action. First reading, an ordinance providing for one-sided parking on Cromwell from Dorman to Kohlers Crossing. Mayor Pro Tem Koch.
Council, I brought this item up because I'm just trying to keep us ahead of traffic flows. We did a really good job recently setting Sanders in Plum Creek. It's a major thoroughfare, and we made it one-side parking on that. And we've seen the fruits from that with traffic. And so when you look at Cromwell from Dorman to Kohlers, there's a lot of construction going on. There's big apartment complexes coming in, and we've had a couple incidents in the past few weeks around the Dorman 1626 area where they've been shut down. And in doing that, we've seen a lot of traffic diverted to Cromwell, and it very much is a major thoroughfare in that part of the city. And it'll continue to become more and more of a thoroughfare as these apartment complexes come in. So when you view that road and there's parking on both sides of the streets, you can see how traffic has a hard time getting by. And that's before there's apartment complexes there now that look like they're at least 50% done. But when there's a car parked on both sides of that, and for whatever reason, either Dorman's shut down, or just as traffic patterns grow going towards Cromwell, you see the inefficiency of the traffic being able to go by each other when there is parking on both sides. So I brought this forward just so we can kind of get ahead of it and correct the problem now before it becomes an issue and before people get upset that the parking might be taken away, so to speak, on that side. So before it even becomes an issue, I think it's a good time for us, seeing how that apartment complex is about to near completion here very soon, that we go ahead and move towards one side parking on Cromwell between Dorman and Kohlers Crossing.
This is Councilmember Rizo. I've got a question. I guess it would be for Leon. Do we know what the width of Cromwell is in that area? Is Leon still with us?
I'm guessing 24 feet. Yeah, I'm just
24.
guessing 20-something feet.
Okay, 20-something
But I'm
feet.
guessing at that number.
And lanes are usually, what are the lanes usually on a normal 2-lane street? I want to say they're about 6 foot each lane. Or am I off?
Well, we had.
Roughly.
I was going to tell Councilor Rizo that we adopted the International Fire Codes regulations as it relates to parking several years ago, so that all new subdivisions and new streets have to have at least 28 or 30 feet in width. I always forget exactly what it is before one-sided parking, and then there's a certain amount of footage beyond that are required before two-sided parking is allowed. The challenge, of course, with Plum Creek is that some of these streets went in prior to changing to the International Fire Code, and this is one of them. Now, for example, there are some streets in the Plum Creek PUD that don't meet that new requirement, but that retrofitting back to one-sided parking is politically tenuous. This is, I think, what Mayor Pro Tem Koch is bringing forward is an opportunity for us to get ahead of it and have this street conform to the International Fire Code prior to the traffic patterns developing that we know are already happening if you drive out there. I mean, Rick, tell me if I'm wrong. That's basically how I was viewing the request.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
And I think that's where I was going with this, because I want to see the width of a fire truck, having vehicles there. I think that's what I was trying to just confirm is making sure that if anything happens in that area, we have the adequate space to get a fire truck through there. So yeah, I'm good with this. So yeah, definitely.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
I pulled up Google Maps to do a quick measurement just using the map tool since I don't think we had prepped that. And I'm showing approximately 36 foot curb to curb on Cromwell.
Mayor Pro Tem, which side of the street were you proposing to actually let people park on? The side that's already got the apartment complexes on it, or the opposing?
Typically, you have to go with the side that doesn't have the fire hydrants.
Okay.
So the side where you don't allow the parking is the side with the fire hydrants, so that the emergency vehicles can have access to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and the image that I was showing is an old image. The new situation is much different.
Did you want me to share the map since I have it up real quick?
Sure,
Yeah.
go ahead.
See where they
All right,
it's pretty tight.
y'all should have this on full screen. And then if I right click here and measure distance, that's approximately 36 feet curb to curb.
Right, but of course, one thing you have to understand is that the International Fire Code is a guideline based on neighborhood streets, but Cromwell is not a neighborhood street. It is an arterial. It's also straightaway, and then you've got pretty much wall-to-wall new urban development styles on both sides with those apartment complexes. So if you actually go out there right now, it's very clearly, you can see that it needs to be the same basic setup as what Sanders got last year. And that has been indisputably positive, what we did on Sanders.
Mayor
So
Pro
that-
Tem, do you remember, I can't get the street view on this. Do you recall which side of the street had the fire hydrants? Because I was thinking that we would be making the east side no parking, but I don't remember which side has the fire hydrants.
It's the west side.
I believe it's the side, if you pulled up that picture you had up earlier, it's the side where the current apartment complex is built has the fire hydrants.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it would be the west side that would need to be no parking.
Okay. Well, we prepared an ordinance and sent to Paige that would adopt this as no parking. Now, I did put east side, and I did that not because of the fire hydrants, but because there's no apartments there currently. So I figured that would be the least amount of trouble. But all we would need to do is change the wording to the west side, and then that ordinance should be in good form.
So the picture that James showed earlier really showed the need for this. You could see how tight it was with two cars parked on each side. So I think that's a really good illustration right there. You can see the vehicle right above it, how narrow that makes that street. So yeah, I think this is a good way to be proactive.
But we would be disallowing the parking currently on the side where there is residential.
Well, you need to go out because the picture James is showing is not complete. The apartments are already erected. No one lives in them yet because they're finishing the build out, but it's coming in a matter of months.
Yeah, it's basically this entire area right in here is just all apartments.
So
4-story apartments at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be there. Both sides are going to get completely full of cars. So, it's like we either have to get ahead of it and think about that traffic flow, or, just deal with it. And I don't think any of us want to have to go back after the fact and fix it.
Yeah.
The wisdom in doing it now is you only upset half the people who live there right now, and the other ones will be brand new and they won't know any different.
The only concern that I have, Councilman Tobias, is if you make the parking on the east side and somebody has to get out, you're going to have that traffic flow coming right down there, and they'd have to cross the street versus the opposite way where you've got the sidewalk and pedestrian walkway right there. Now, I understand the safety of it all as far as having the fire hydrants and the trucks there, but I'm looking at the traffic flow coming through and somebody parking right there in the middle, then having to walk across, whether they have children or not, or just themselves, or in the middle of the night, or you're going to have that car coming straight through there versus having to make that roundabout.
I think it's going to be
just something to consider.
I think there are going to be sidewalks on both sides, though, right?
I believe so. Leon, do you know?
Right there, it looks it's
usually as a developer, we require the sidewalks. Yes.
If it has sidewalks, then eventually you could have your pedestrian walkway added later on where they can cross safely.
I mean, I think it'd be easy enough to add crosswalks where you see these, these current connections down to the roadway. It'd be easy enough to add crosswalks across at those points.
You can have the parking on the east, you have your sidewalks, and then you add your two crosswalks that allows the people to get out, move to the right, walk down, and then cross instead of crossing in the street. You have two safe passages right there between those apartments. And then you also would leave the west side open for those emergency vehicles if need be.
Leon, are we able to to do crosswalks at these mid-block points here. If I'm not sure that this is ADA accessible or not, I don't know what this looks like on the ground. If this is not ADA accessible, could we make a crosswalk anyway, or will we have to go and cut and just have street department cut this out and put in a ramp?
We'd have to put in a ramp. The paving should be accessible because it's usually slow. So going across the road is not going to be an issue. If there's not a ramp there, we'd have to install a ramp there. I'm not a great fan of mid-block pedestrian crossings, but they exist. They just make me nervous when you try to cross the block midway. But they are installed. I've seen them throughout other cities, so they are feasible.
I mean, generally, I think the will is to make this one side no parking. Then the rest of the logistics staff can figure out. And then if we need to make a recommendation for a mid-block crosswalk because of the distance between the two intersections, then we can sure come back and just apprise council that that's what we're recommending that we do. And then we can direct the street department to go out and make those improvements, then install the ADA ramps, and then do the striping.
That's a good plan.
Mayor Pro Tem, Paige does have the draft ordinance in her possession. So if y'all want to be able to just read it, it's very simple. But if you want to be able to read it, then I'd recommend that if this takes action tonight, that you bring it back for second reading to give everyone the opportunity to read it. We do have it up on the screen here. Note, I'll have to change the word eastern to western to match whichever side has the fire hydrants, but the rest of it is pretty plain and simple. Also, we drafted this, Matt, if you can scroll down a little bit to the penalty portion. No, too far. Just right back in this area right here, enforcement and penalties. So normally your ordinances specifically call out what the penalty is going to be. Here we elected to just reference what the rest of the code says about parking, so that way we don't have any problems with this getting confused with the other parking ordinance. And if the other parking ordinance gets changed, then the penalties and all those types of things are all addressed at one time. So
works for me. I'd like to, if there are no objections, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as written and amend the language to change east and replace it with west, and eastern and replace it with western.
Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Ellison. Is there any further discussion? Thanks for bringing this forward, Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate that very much. I think it's definitely needed.
I think it's great that we're being proactive and looking down the road. So that's always a plus. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you all, everyone.
All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. I don't see any reason for it to come back personally. The ordinance is drafted. The amendment's in place. That's the only thing to change. It's real straightforward. So I'm not looking to object it being finally passed, but does anybody think that we need to bring it back for any reason? All right.
I have no objection.
With no objections, we're going to go ahead and have it finally passed. All right. Next up, agenda item number 13, approval of a contract with Edmondson Reed for 104 South Burleson and Mary Kay Hartson Park improvements. Mr. Earp.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that we have representatives from Edmondson Reed here to participate, to speak to council on this item. We've been working diligently behind the scenes to try and get the contract in a position to be able to be approved by council. Paige and representatives from Edmondson Reed and the various subcontractors are coming to agreement on the form of that particular written agreement because of the design build format. And I wanted to give the opportunity for the representatives to speak for a few minutes. And then we essentially have the contract in a position of awarding it to Edmondson Reed, which we haven't done yet. And then of course, utilizing their selected contractor, which is Black Hawk, for the total amount of $2.5 million. And then the specific portions that would be deliverables will come back to council at a future date for the council to adopt once all the design and plans and everything are in place, and we know exactly what we're getting and what we're committing to. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Cray or Ann, whoever wants to go first. Ann popped up on my screen for some reason, so I don't guess it really matters who goes first, but Cray and Ann, and if y'all have anyone else on your team I don't see on the list right now, feel free to give them a minute or two on the mic too.
Certainly.
Cray, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It was nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity. As James said, we're pulling together all the resources that we're bringing on board to get their final numbers to execute and make sure we're in line to the budget that we're outlining for this, and working with the contractor. Ann's been very helpful in facilitating that. So we're trying to get everyone at an even number. There are a few consultants that came in a little high, so we're trying to bring them down to earth, so to speak. So I have been working in contact with Paige to facilitate that. So hopefully in the next day or so, we'll have something a little bit more formal to be presented. I will actually be in Austin and Kyle Thursday and Friday. I'll be walking the site and meeting with Ann and a few of the consultants. So I'm just excited, and our whole team's excited to be a part of this project. So thank you for this amazing opportunity.
I want to tag on to that. You know, I've heard the term excitement quite a bit, and we are definitely that, but we're also very privileged and grateful to be working on this project. An urban park like this that services all citizens of Kyle and their friends and families, and with so much going on in the world, there's nothing more refreshing than knowing that these types of places provide the social equity that is so needed in our communities. Not to mention there's incredible history to this. So it's held very firmly in the hearts of all the citizens of Kyle. And when I read the plaque more carefully, I had no idea that Mary Kyle Hartson's brother, that Kyle Field, is named after him. So I was just exactly thrilled about that. But I have practiced in the Austin area for 39 years. This is exactly the scale of project and the community focus that our firm enjoys. We've really launched well with ERA. We're melding really beautifully on this. Our good friends at Cleanscapes are going to help with the implementation of the project. And I can't say enough positive about them. Not only are they bring incredible value, they're very efficient, they're very careful. They do a lot of downtown projects. So they're all about safety and moving quickly. They're very well synchronized. They're great partners with not only the leaders like yourselves, but designers. They don't nitpick about things. They're very win-win, which I can't say enough. So it was a no-brainer to bring them on board to facilitate the reality of this. There's been some discussion about the significance and importance of keeping the ceremonial tree lighting from November to January, really. And we're working out the details of how to facilitate that. So we're anxious to do that. I have walked the site. We're going to walk it again. We've got a few trees that are in decline. A few trees had those very tight stone tree rings around them. They're not doing so well. So that's something that I'll be bringing forth quickly, because that will drive some of the decisions of the design. Is some of those trees need to be mitigated for. Anything that we lose, we'll try to compensate for. But I did notice a few issues like that. Other than that, like Cray said, we're trying to get all of our all the housekeeping lined up so we can launch, and can't wait to bring forth some further defined concepts for everybody to look over so we can get going.
Thank you, Ann. So basically, staff is recommending that council approve the design build agreement with Edmondson Reed with their use of Blackhawk Construction LLC that would be in the final form as approved by legal counsel. And that will help keep us on schedule to move forward. The next step is going to be for all of the consultants along with the stakeholders to narrowly define what everything actually will be, to do the design, to determine what the building is going to look like, what the landscaping is going to look like, and to put all that into contractual form and to bring that back as soon as humanly possible for council to accept the design. And then that will be the thing that actually sets what everything is going to look like and how we're going to get it and when we're going to get it in stone.
Very correct.
Any questions for Cray or Ann, or any questions with regards to James's requested motion?
Yeah, James, Councilmember Rizo. So what exactly were we voting on this evening? Because we don't have a contract, correct?
You don't have the actual contract to look at yourself. That is correct. And when this has happened in the past, whenever we're time sensitive, essentially, if council approves of the contractor that's been selected and the council approves of the budget, then council has, on occasion, elected to say that, well, if legal counsel signs off on the form of the contract, then we would be willing to accept that and go ahead and make a motion to approve it pending or subject to a legal signing off on the form of the contract. That is what staff is recommending that council consider to do tonight.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to approve a contract with Edmondson Reed for 104 South Burleson and Mary Kyle Hartson Park with the approval after it's gone through legal and it has been signed off on by legal.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Koch, that we approve the design build agreement with Edmondson Reed with their use of Blackhawk Construction LLC in the final form approved by legal counsel. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I have a question. Mayor, this is Councilman Tobias. So let me get this so I can have a better understanding. What we're voting on is just the first phase of this contract, not the actual final pricing on it, not the designs on it.
Yes, that's correct. And Paige is here to be able to speak because she's been doing the lion's share of the work on drafting the agreement after the first draft came through. But because it's a design build, there's essentially two phases that have to happen. One, we have to essentially award the contract to this team with the guaranteed maximum price of $2.5 million. And that way they know that they are safe to be able to expend funds to start doing some of the groundwork and whatnot. But then the next step is for all the design work for like basically everything that you would imagine happens in this project that everyone's so excited about. The actual aesthetics, design, floor plan of City Hall. I mean, not City Hall. I'm so sorry. Of the building that would be built. See, here I am already thinking, right? Of the building that would be built, especially for the partnership that we're working to achieve with the restaurateurs. The landscaping that goes along with it. What the landscaping of Mary Kyle Hartson Park would look like. Exactly what components will be included. The different plants, the different hardscapes, and all of that will be budgeted out and with a guaranteed maximum price of our budget amount, which they responded to on the RFQ. That is the second phase of the contract because there's really no way to get to that point until these folks have assurance and guarantees that they will be paid for their design work. And there's no way for us to be able to get the design work without them getting paid without a contract in place that gives us legal authority to do that. So that's kind of the process. Paige, if you feel like I didn't clarify it well enough, please feel free to jump in.
The process is correct. What I wanted to clarify is the dollar, kind of the breakdown and some of the dollars under that budget. That there is the fee for the design services is $85,000, and the design build team can jump in here if I'm misstating anything. But the overall budget for the project is $2.5 million. Of that, $85,000 is the design services, and that would get you to a set of documents that you can then use to do the construction work. Out of the construction budget, there is a 5% construction manager fee that is out of the construction budget. So that's breaking that down, but everything else is guaranteed maximum price. The total package being $2.5 million under the terms of the contract. If it comes in under budget, then the city is the beneficiary of that coming in under budget. If it goes over budget, that's the guaranteed maximum price component of that. That's at the contractor's risk.
And correct, Paige, the design fees is only one component. It's only one consultant. There's multiple consultants and their design fees, which is not part of that 85. So there's various consultants that are going to be on board, civil, MEP, structural, that have their own fees, which we're bringing together, and we'll have a better idea hopefully by this Thursday.
Survey too.
Survey, ANS fees, landscape contractor, all those fees are being compiled together.
Basically, I'm sorry, Alex. We selected the contractor at the last meeting,
Yes.
and now we are trying to approve the scope of the design.
Right.
And the build part comes later once they've actually done the design. So a lot of this is the minutia of the way they're going to bill for their work. But there's no renderings, there's nothing for us to vote on as far as what the facility is going to look like, because they haven't designed. So that's kind of the reason for moving it forward, because we're trying to actually get them to start executing on the work, so that we can be sitting down and having council look through those plans and bring those actual plans back for critical analysis from the staff.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that explains a lot. I think the other thing too is that Paige, what are the outline deliverables for this? Can you just kind of go through those really fast? That way the public can hear that, and then also some of the council members can understand what those deliverables are going to be.
The first phase of the deliverables will be. I'm sorry, I'm pulling up the contract here. Give me a moment. I mean, the first set of deliverables will be the design documents. There are some preliminary design documents that have to be produced before you get to the final design documents that would serve as the basis for the plans and specifications for the contractor. So that's the set of initial deliverables. After the plans and specifications are complete, that serves as the basis for the actual construction of the project. And then so the next set of deliverables is the building, the renovated building.
Right. And the way we look at it on the creative side, and jump in anytime, is there's 4 phases. There's a schematic, design development, construction documentation, and construction administration. Schematic is when we start formulating the circulation, the flow, the design aesthetics of the building and the park associated, what that is going to look like in renderings, in elevation, use of space. That's easy in schematic, and the design development is when we start narrowing down and getting into the weeds, so to speak, and actually identifying materials, finishes, glazing, lighting, treatments, and then on the landscape side, type of plants, type of containers, the pergola, and things like that. And then we start producing construction documents that the contractor actually facilitates in the building and budgeting everything out and getting all the bids in. So we're within budget. And then construction administration is being on site, answering RFIs, which is a request for information, and change orders, and making sure it's built on time, on budget, and everyone's doing their part and getting it done.
I do a tremendous amount of public projects, and the design, build, delivery method is becoming one of the preferred ways of delivery, because you have a contractor on your team that's watching our design phase by phase, like Craig was describing, so that we're staying within budget. So everything's transparent. They're showing us the numbers. The numbers are available to you if you want to see them. They're actually receiving competitive pricing from multiple vendors and contractors. So that's how beneficial it is, so that we can deliver the project you expect, because we're showing renderings and pricing as we move through the system, not a design and then at the end you price it. So it works faster. So we try to really manage the surprises along the way, because we do have the benefit of a contractor on our team.
Correct.
Or leading our team, really. A lot of ways.
Thank you for that. That's great.
Councilmember Rizo, if everybody's gone, I've got one more question for Paige. Is there anybody else? Because I'm already gone.
Go ahead, Robert.
Okay. Paige, so by approving this contract, do we bind ourselves anyway on setting end dates or anything in that manner? Because I know y'all have noticed the hard question I always ask on any of our projects is I want to make sure that we have an end date installed, and that we're holding any contractor we hold, whether it's roads or anything else that we're building, to that end date. And will that keep us from ensuing any penalties or anything in that contract? Does that keep us from limit us from doing any of that language?
The contract has liquidated damage clauses for both the design phase and the construction phase. As you work through the preliminary design phase, that's where you will pin down the design and construction schedule, and that will get approved as part of the preliminary design phase. And then at the time that you get ready to do the construction component, where you arrive with respect to the plans and specifications, that'll dictate the time frame for the construction. And design team, correct me if I've misstated anything here.
No, you're correct. We'll put together a schedule, and that schedule we're being led by, because our consultants are being led by that schedule as well. If there's any unforeseen weather that delays things, that is out of our control. But we adhere to everyone, and everyone adheres to us in maintaining that schedule, because it's a time frame issue.
And I don't want you to feel like I'm picking on you. I can guarantee you that I've been like this with all our projects since I've been on council. I want to make sure that we're not pushed to the back of the line, that we're actually our contractors know that we have an end date, and we expect that end date to be heard. We keep in mind that I understand there's some things that we have no control over, like weather in Central Texas, but sometimes that could be an excuse, and I just want to make sure that all our contractors that work with the city of Kyle know that we're going to hold them accountable, especially unless they're trying their best and something unperceivable comes up. Then I understand. So yeah.
And correct me if I'm incorrect, James, but I believe in that RFQ initially there was 2 dates: November of this year and then April of 2021.
You would be remembering correctly, Craig.
Oh, good. So that's our beginning and ending points. So whatever happens in between, that's on us. We just have to fulfill that agreement of beginning November and ending in 2021 of April, and handing you the keys, so to speak. So,
Craig, thank you.
And you are
thank you very
part
much.
of that. You're part of the help with the facilitation of the schedule, with approvals and with that kind of thing. So, and I know we all serve the public, And there are times when that becomes an issue that we are often surprised by. So I'm not saying that we're all in it together, but I'm saying we're all in it together. So we will manage all the things under our control, most definitely, very well. And with your help, we can manage the things we don't know about. And on my side of the park, that's an old site, and I just don't know what we're going to dig up, yet. I don't see it affecting schedule or price. It's just there. I'm anxious to get that survey. I saw some very old looking sewer caps and things next to trees. I'm like, is that a utility wrap around that tree? So I'm not afraid of any of that. We'll hit it head on, but I'm sure we're going to need your help saying, do you have a little information on this or that? But I just wanted to mention that you will help us facilitate that schedule, no doubt. We'll need your help. We will do it, but your help is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
I guess the other question I just have, just real quick, is the historical area. We have to work with them on that in the park. If there's any kind of monuments or any kind of like the water fountain or anything like that, we've got to, especially in the park area.
There is a list of the items. I've read it several times. I do go out and see them all. So the answer is yes. I don't know how much we have to run by them yet. I have a close friend that is the longest serving landscape architect on the Texas Historic Commission. So I sent him that list, and we're going to set up a time once we're approved tonight. I didn't want to do anything until we've got council approval, obviously. But once we do, I will meet with him and see and get back with you. But the idea being to just layer on some modern elements in the park and preserve the historic character as much as we possibly can, and fix what's not working and make things that are historic look a little more new, but not a radical removal of anything like that, of course. But there are certain things, like even the plaque by the fountain is right in the middle of the circulation of where people want to walk. So there might be some relocation of elements. That's true too for the concrete gift benches and picnic tables. They are not ADA compliant. So it may be that they need to be relocated or new surfacing put under them. But I do understand the significance of those. But at the same time, we want to have new, modern, very accessible ADA park elements to bring Kyle into the 21st century. So we'll be doing both. Keeping it historic, keeping the history, but bringing in something exciting for the citizens.
Square means a very big deal to me. Grew up in this area, so.
Sure. You broke up a little bit there, but I think I heard that.
Yeah. The square means a lot to me. I grew up in this area, so I just want to try to keep it as much as.
Yeah, we'll be very sensitive to that.
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you see any issues? Your side is probably some of the major landscaping pieces in the current park. What are you seeing? And you talked about some of the stress on the trees. Are we looking at, as far as you're concerned, any major issues with any of them at this point on your first assessment?
I saw one that is dead for sure.
Okay.
I've seen one more that's stressed, and one other that is very girdled. It looks like the stone edger had been removed,
right,
and it is strangling itself. I don't know if it can be saved or not. And there were 4 trees that I caught my eye, from dead to stressed. All the other ones are in magnificent condition and will benefit from some of the things I have in mind, like aeration, adding some compost to the soil. So trees are the focus. I mean, that's what makes that park an incredible asset to that part of downtown. So, but if those 4 trees have to come out, we will do something to mitigate that, so it is a superior solution to what's there now. Take it very seriously.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns or thoughts? Paige, could you be sure and once you've finalized that agreement, get that right to council as soon as you can?
Yes. And wanted to make sure we had included in the motion the maximum price for this agreement, which James, I understand to be
it's 2.5 million is what we put in the RFQ.
Yeah.
And that's what council has budgeted.
Mayor, I can amend my motion to include the maximum 2.5 million amount.
Okay. So is that a friendly amendment to the original seconder?
Yes.
Who is the original second?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem. Okay,
Yeah.
so the motion on the table is to approve the contract subject to legal, final legal revisions and to set the maximum price at $2.5 million. Made by Councilor Shields, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Koch. Is there any further discussion? Very excited to. Okay, go ahead, Dex.
I was just going to say that I think obviously we're just trying to get some last bit across the finish line as far as legal and contracts, and we all know that those can sometimes hang some things up, but it's important to get everything clarified there. So I know everyone's anxious and ready to go. I appreciate the enthusiasm from Cray and Ann. I feel really confident about this group and partnering with both of these firms. I like what I've seen from them. Definitely appreciate the robust discussion and the concerns and thoughts and comments expressed by my colleagues on council. And I think, between the vision that Edmondson Reed has for the structure at 104 South Burleson, and then the expertise and vision that Anna is going to bring with that landscaping, I think this is going to be second to none. So I'm very grateful for this partnership. And so hopefully we can get everything buttoned up and get to rock and rolling.
Great. Again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no further objections, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Cray. Thank you, Ann.
Absolutely.
We look forward to seeing what you come up with.
All right. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, next up, agenda item number 14, first reading and ordinance of the City of Kyle, Texas, amending Chapter 11, Business Regulations by amending Article II Alcoholic Beverages, Section 1145, relating to hours of operation, etc. This is a follow-up item that council directed staff to bring back at the request of Councilor Rizo to reduce weekday bar hours to midnight, I believe. Councilor Rizo, did you have anything you wanted to add to this item?
Yes, Mayor. I know we were having some technical difficulties last meeting and not everything got relayed, but this is just a way of us being able to really enhance our downtown, but at the same time, make sure that the bars know that they have to adhere to rules that we have in our city. And when we start tying up our natural resources, our resources like the PD, they've got to realize that we need to work together in order to create a downtown that we can all be proud of and throughout the city as well. So the reason I'm bringing this forward is that we've had some issues downtown, and this is a way of hopefully sending a message to say, let's work together. Let's create a great downtown we can all be proud of, and hopefully everybody will get that message.
Thank you, Councilor Rizo. Any other thoughts by council? I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilor Tobias, that we approve agenda item number 14, limiting bar hours to midnight during the week. Is there any further discussion?
So, yes, Councilmember Rizzo, you mentioned downtown, and so certainly understandable, but this ordinance would be citywide, correct?
Correct. And that's why at the end I mentioned downtown and the city as well. So it will be a citywide ordinance, and it will, hopefully help the working people that work during the week from any noise ordinances or anything past midnight. And this will go Sunday through Thursday is what we're looking at, not Friday and Saturday.
The ordinance says Friday, Saturday, Sunday, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Let me make sure I got it right. The extended hours are for Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. If that's not the intent, I need to change it to just Friday and Saturday.
It says Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, the ordinance says Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, I think Sunday is Sunday from midnight to 2. At that point, it's Sunday. Saturday night, it turns into Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. But Sunday night, we actually are closed, correct? That's the way it is at midnight.
Under this ordinance, it's the extended hours go into Sunday evening. Or go into Sunday early morning hours.
So Sunday would turn into Monday morning at 2 a.m.
No, it would turn into Sunday morning at 2 a.m.
Okay, so that's a Saturday carryover to Sunday, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So when it refers to the early hours in the ordinance, Friday, it says Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So those are the 2 hours into Friday from midnight to 2 a.m. Saturday, midnight to 2 a.m. and Sunday, midnight to 2 a.m.
And you'll have to apologize. I might need to apologize for some confusion when I was doing this.
Paige, I'm looking at it the way that you have it written, and it's written exactly the way they're saying.
Okay.
So it's midnight to 2 on the days set forth in section 52A. The days set forth in 52A are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Sunday starts at 12 a.m. So it's 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Sunday. So it's basically Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. But the carryover extended hours are 12 to 2 of the next day. So,
and that's what I was getting at was it's not Sunday into Monday at 2 a.m. It's Saturday into 2 a.m. Sunday morning. That's what I was getting. Yeah. Okay.
That's correct, Councilmember Rizo. That's the way that it's currently written.
That's what I read. Okay, sounds good.
And
okay.
You said though it also includes Thursday night into Friday morning.
I misspoke there. It is Thursday. It is Thursday, I believe. Correct, Paige, if I'm reading it right. So we would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the 3 days.
That's right.
I'm reading. Yeah.
So the main differential here is that the beginning time does not start on the previous day. It starts at 12 a.m. the day of. So the 12 to 2 a.m. on Friday would be the carryover from Thursday. The 12 to 2 a.m. on Saturday would be the carryover from Friday. And the 12 to 2 a.m. on Sunday would be the carryover from Saturday.
Saturday, correct.
Thanks for the assist on the explanation. My head has been in that design build contract, so thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
So James, we're throwing out so many numbers. On Thursday night, does the bar close at midnight?
No.
Okay, that is not the intention of what was put out there last week.
Exactly.
It's Sunday through Thursday, closes at midnight, and then extended hours on Friday night and Saturday night.
Okay, so one of these days, there's 3 days in here. So the first day of Friday needs to be removed from the ordinance.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and that's what I was trying to
Thank you,
get
Tracy.
at. Okay. Thank you for qualifying that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you.
So essentially we'll have 2 days open to midnight. And so I just wanted to point out earlier about this was citywide and kind of emphasize that, because I know that originally the discussion was with downtown, and that's been a lot of discussion. There will be future development in our city, and there will be entities that will come into our city that won't be near residential neighborhoods. I have to admit, I'm not totally enthusiastic about this for the potential of other areas in the city, not just downtown. And I'm not completely sold on the logic, Councilmember Rizo, but I do understand the resource allocation. You know, I think, you know, there could be some positivity to this.
And I can assure you, Councilmember Ellison, I thought long and hard about this, and I can tell you right now, I'm not anti-bar. That's the least thing that I'm trying to do is just target bars. What I'm thinking about is public safety is what comes first to mind. And when I start seeing an area that's kind of going against public safety, that's adhering something that's not in the parameters of keeping our public safe, I really want to address that issue, and this is the issue I'm actually going at. So I'm not going after bars because they're bars. I'm actually just trying to address a public safety issues. What I'm trying to do with this ordinance, and hopefully this will send a strong enough language for it. I mean,
I was under the impression when we first presented it, this was going to be a temporary issue going into a permanency to assess. When did it become a permanent ordinance?
So we directed staff to come up with an ordinance the last meeting, and we brought in the follow-up documents to present it here to council, what their recommendation was.
So is this staff recommendation?
The other deliverable I have.
Is it staff recommendation?
For my part.
Led by council.
Yeah, I mean, Paige is essentially the staff in this instance that's been working on this with council to get it into a form for y'all to consider.
Yeah, and if there's anything that's not correct, it's my misunderstanding. I thought I was bringing forward an ordinance to change the hours to Friday and Saturday night for extended hours only. And then the other deliverable I have is some information for you on the ability to regulate different areas of the city differently with respect to extended hours.
Okay.
That's still being reviewed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. That makes a difference.
So what do you want to do?
So do we have a motion? I think we had a motion, didn't we? Or we haven't had a motion?
Not yet.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance that staff has brought back to us on the hours of bars in our city.
You want to add the amendment to the language proposed?
And I would like to add the amendment for the taking off the Thursday. Anything else we're missing there?
Okay, I'll second. It's been moved by Councilmember Rizo, seconded by the mayor, that we amend the bar hours as stated in the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Personally, I'm good with it. So I think that we're a family town by and large, and really that's I just agree with Councilmember Rizzo's statements on the bar scene from midnight to 2 a.m. 7 nights a week is a little bit more than I think it's a little out of character for what the city of Kyle, for, you know, in terms of the makeup of the city of Kyle, and it's certainly not meant to disparage the bar owners or patrons, but just rather to recognize that our downtown and our city just in general is probably not quite up for that, just as a general rule. And I think that, you know, considering all the hours that folks are, you know, that those bars are open, we ought to be able to find the ability to go out and have a drink within those hours. I know our officers have complained about the sort of the ornery behavior that has been taking place, especially, you know, later and later. Councilor Villalobos's point, I think, from the last meeting as well. You know, certainly this isn't a proposal that's meant to fix all the ills in the world, and I don't anticipate that it will. But I do anticipate that it will help our downtown to quieten down during the week a little earlier, and I think that's probably a good thing considering where we are right now. I would like to also kind of add to Councilor Ellison's point that just because, and to Councilor Villalobos's point, that just because we amend this currently, there is going to be opportunities as our city evolves to further amend the hours as the need arises. So if districts pop up, you know, elsewhere in uptown or in some other area where the scene is different and it becomes the will of council to allow for some strip or group of businesses to stay open longer, or maybe all of them, you know, it's certainly we're just always an ordinance away from being able to put it back to the way that it was. It's worth a shot to me.
And I agree. There's a different downtown area. I just wanted to make sure that we had the clause or the ability to reassess other areas as we continue to grow, because I can see this being an issue later on. And you know, for the downtown area, because it's so close to residents, it's a good start. My only thought process was when this was initially presented, it was a temporary ordinance, not a permanent ordinance. But either way, I'm good.
The other way that we could handle it if we wanted to bring it back at another time would be to craft an ordinance through an amendment to a zoning district, saying that in CBD 1, CBD 2 districts, bar hours are such and such. And that would allow for other areas of the city to potentially have a different set of standards. But again, I don't really see that that's something we're dealing with right now. Are there other areas in Kyle where bars are staying open past midnight?
No, we're just looking for future. That's all. But we have the ability to change that at any point, which is fine. That's what I'm saying. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, do we want that to be finally passed? Any objection? All right, seeing none, we're going to let it be finally passed. Next up, agenda item number 15, authorize and direct city staff to finalize form of MUE for electrical facilities in the public right-of-way and urban districts, and to bring forward an amendment to the franchise agreement with PEC. Mr. Earp.
Mayor, Council, while this does have my name on it, it's really more in Paige's realm of a project that she's working on that was brought up because of the work that we're doing in Uptown. The unique design characteristics of Uptown require all of the infrastructure to be in very tight easements that are in, either in front of or behind the buildings that are being constructed. PEC usually goes into and demands that it has its own separate standalone easement, and they're being asked to operate inside of the municipal utility easement assignment that's being given to them. So in order for that to happen, we need to satisfy PEC, and one of those things is, I believe, making this item added to our franchise agreement. So I'll turn it over to Paige and let her explain the work that she's been doing.
Mayor and Council, this item has James's name on it because he's more articulate than I am tonight, but I will try to do justice to this item. No. So there's 2 items in front of you. It's just as James described. The PEC usually likes to have easements in its own name on private property. In areas like Uptown Kyle, where the development is more urbanized and you don't have room for the easement in the private property because of the proximity of the building to the property line, that puts the utilities, the dry utilities, including electrical, in the right of way. What PEC has requested to get comfortable with that and approve plans and specifications that have electrical in the right of way is 2 things. One is they want to be held harmless from repairing the pavement if they have to cut into the pavement to repair the line, number 1. And number 2, they don't want to pay for the cost of relocating the lines if the city has to relocate the lines due to reconfiguring the road, for example. So what we are looking for tonight, if you are so inclined, is to get authorization to finalize an easement form that addresses those 2 items and to bring back an amendment to the franchise that addresses those 2 items as well. We're still negotiating final language with PEC on both of those items, but those are the 2 items they want addressed. A couple of things to think about. We've had a conversation with them about what are the circumstances where you might have to cut into the street to repair a line. When they install these lines, they're put into duct banks, and then there are vaults that are, and switch gear that are installed as well. And what they have told us is that a lot of the work that needs to be done, they can get done through those, the vaults and the switch gear, which keeps them from having to go into the streets. They also install additional conduits so that if one conduit goes bad for one reason or another, then they have another conduit in there they can pull the line through, which keeps them from having to cut the street. The other thing to consider, it's kind of a risk assessment, is, okay, if we are planning this downtown correctly and we have the streets built and the buildings close to it, if we're in a circumstance where we're rerouting the streets and the lines, you're talking about having buildings impacted by that as well. So it's kind of a risk assessment on what's the likelihood of us moving these after everything is built out, moving these lines. So those are the items for thought as you review this issue, and I'm available for any questions.
You see, you're articulate. That was articulate. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any questions for Paige? Motions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize and direct city staff to finalize a form of MUE for electrical facilities in the public right-of-way in urban districts and et cetera.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Villalobos, that we approve agenda item number 15 as written. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 16, discussion and possible action for reducing the speed limit on South Old Stagecoach Road. Councilman Rizo.
Thank you, Mayor. So I started seeing a problem that was being created on Stagecoach Road with traffic speeding and with pedestrians now traveling Stagecoach 7 days a week in the evening hours especially. I had a concern for this, and I got with Chief Barnett and Scott Sellers and had a traffic survey conducted at the 800 block of South Old Stagecoach Road for a period of 10 days from June the 20th through June the 27th. And this was only the traffic that was moving northbound, so just one way. The posted speed limit there is 35 miles an hour. We had a total of 9,607 vehicles counted in those 10 days. The average speed violators was 77%. The average speed was not 39 miles an hour. And those adhering to the posted speed limit were only 23% of the vehicles there. Out of those vehicles, 2,497 of them traveled an average speed of 41 to 45 miles an hour. 663 of them traveled 46 to 50 miles an hour. And 23 traveled 56 through 60 miles an hour. And this was only calculating the speed one way. I have noticed that the speed going southbound is just as dangerous. And it's kind of hard to imagine because there's a stop sign there at Center Street and Stagecoach, but they can take off pretty quick from there. By the time they get to San Vicente Cemetery, they're traveling at a high rate of speed. Actually, witnessed a pizza delivery truck passing up a vehicle there as well. So I guess that pizza had to be there on time. That's all I can think of. I'm not going to mention who the pizza delivery was, but after talking to the assistant, the city manager, James Earp, and Leon Barbara, I've decided to pull this item and not change the speed. We thought about doing an extra speed study, but if that speed study comes back saying that our average speed is 40, they could raise the speed limit. And I'm afraid that would put more people in danger. At this time, I think James and I have crafted something that might help, and we've isolated some times that we can have more patrol out in this area, and hopefully we can curve the speeders with extra patrols at key times. And at this time, I'm going to pull this item and hope we can address this issue with patrol.
Okay.
But I did feel I needed to give council the information that I received from.
It's kind of interesting that whenever you do a speed study, people think that, oh, if the majority of traffic is speeding, then that means you need to lower the traffic. But one thing I've learned on council is that that's not always what that means. Sometimes it means you need to raise the speed limit, or at least that's the thinking of engineers and traffic-minded folks. So I think that's probably a wise decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tracy.
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this forward in the first place. Unfortunately, one thing I have learned is, you can decrease the speed, but speeders speed no matter what. And if they want to go 45 miles an hour, they're going to go 45 miles an hour if the speed limit's 35 or 30, unless there is something there to actually deter them. And the best deterrent is a ticket. So thank you for, first of all, bringing it forward, but also thinking outside the box too, and speaking with others to come up with another plan.
The best possible solution. We actually had 170 mile an hour through Stagecoach. So, yeah. And this, and keep in mind, this was just one way. I believe wholeheartedly that if we would have ran traffic control both ways, these numbers would have doubled. And that's was still the same amount of traffic maybe, but I don't know. It's just concerning because there's so much foot traffic there now, joggers, bikers, and I worry that we're gonna run into an issue. But hopefully KPD can deter some of these speeders, and working together we can make the road safer.
I know exactly where that spot is. We're down the road from there, and I am surprised by now, Councilor Rizo, that there has not been a major accident with those people that drive down Stagecoach that fast. You do have a lot of cyclists that come up both sides. You do have pedestrian walkers and runners, but you do see a lot of cars going, at least 60 miles an hour, all the way down past the cemetery going to 5 Mile Dam. And I'm very surprised that we have not had a fatality in that area. And I'm knocking on wood that I hope it doesn't happen. But the way that the city's growing and people are used to those back roads, all it takes is one deer to just jump out and run. And I hope people that drive that really take this consideration, the speed that they're going. And please be careful and please slow down.
And we have had quite a few accidents in that area. And I can tell you right now, Councilmember Tobias said, my mother was rear-ended there just before turning onto Roland Lane. Just before Roland Lane, she hadn't even slowed down to make the turn yet, and somebody rear-ended her doing about 45 miles an hour, and she was doing the posted speed limit. So she was real lucky to walk away from that. Her car was totaled, but you know, this is something I don't want to see happen to anybody else in this area. So hopefully we can deter some of this. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Robert. Any other comments, questions?
I just, you know, one of the main things that we do as in public safety is that we need to assess our areas where things have changed, right? That's you know, that's scanning your areas and understanding where things change with growth. So I think this is one of those areas that, you know, again, this is probably a teaching moment, more of along the lines of our staff, and that, you know, as we continue to grow, you guys are already doing so many things, but these are one of those things that we do. We environmentally scan where the changes at, where violations happen, what kind of pattern of activity that we need to address, and then we address it. That's what came out of this, and I'm glad that the council member had that done. But again, these are areas that maybe we start getting our staff to identify and providing them the equipment to do it, and then start, you know, that's what justifies their ability to continue to grow as a department too, right? Is that they're out there being proactive and looking at these areas that need help. And I'm glad they work together to get that done. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, anything else on the topic? Well, with that, I think we're done, unless we missed anything in executive session, which I don't think we did.
Mm-mm. Mayor,
That's
I'd like
for
to
you.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Rizo, that we adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Motion carries 6-1.